Thank you, Stephen. Good song service. We appreciate each and every one of you being here this evening. We do have a good crowd, and we're thankful that you have chosen to come and be with us. We do have those that are visiting with us, and you are hopefully going to be treated as a VIP, because we do think you are important, and we certainly appreciate you coming by and worshiping with us this evening. We hope and pray that all things that we do will be according to God's inspired word. You may want to be turning to the book of Job. We're going to be looking at Job 5 and 6 this evening. Job chapter 5 and 6. While you're turning there, let me just make a comment. You know, I love preaching, but I love preaching for a lot of different reasons. Sitting up here and in front of the congregation, I get to enjoy the best part of the singing. There's not a better seat in the house. But one of the things I enjoy is watching these young folks as they're learning how to lead singing. And I see mamas and daddies who are teaching children how to beat time and things of that nature. Man, I want you to know that does my heart good. I appreciate you, all of you, to being concerned. I know with these two little redheads that are right down here on the front, every opportunity that we can get one of them to sit in our lap, we're always trying to show them how to be excited about singing. And that's one aspect of the worship service that children just absolutely enjoy. And you ought to build upon that as parents. Build on it, strengthen it. Make a great bridge that'll reach out and stretch a long ways across many chasms of life. And so I thank you so much for those things. Whether you get anything out of my preaching tonight or not, I've gotten something out of you, and I thank you for that. All right, let's just kind of go back from Job chapter 1, and let's put our mind, let's study this book so that it will stick, okay? Because if it's not sticking, young folks, it's not helping you. So when you look at Job chapter 1, Job chapter 2, and Job chapter 3, you're really going to see Job described and Job's despair. 2 D's. Job described and Job's despair. You're going to see the calamities of life that he's going to face. And then when you come to chapter 4, which we did last week, you're going to be introduced to 3 different friends, and each one of these friends, this section to me, you just need to label it, this is one big argument. You have arguments with your friends, don't you? I know if you're an Alabama fan and you have an Auburn friend, you have arguments from time to time. It may be something as silly as that. Well, this is a little bit more important than that. But the arguments, you need to let the arguments stick in you so that you'll understand. In chapter 4, Eliphaz, and if you look at chapter 4 and verse 6 and circle the word integrity, because that's what chapter 4 is about. Eliphaz talks about Job's integrity. Basically, he's saying, now Job, you're not honest. Job, you know better than this. Job, you've seen these people get punished, and you know why they're getting punished. It's because they've done something wrong. And if you won't admit that, he said, I'm going to question your integrity. That's Job chapter 4. Job chapter 5, Eliphaz's second point. Here's the second point of his argument. And to me, you need to go down to verse 17. Verse 17, because the second part of his argument is, well, let me put it in his words. Verse 8, but as for me, I will seek God. Now, what are you saying, Eliphaz? I'm saying I'm going to let God prove my point. I'm going to use the God argument. And I'm going to make these valid points that you cannot disagree. Points that you cannot answer. They're the God argument. And then in chapter 6, we're going to see Job's answer in relationship to what he says what Eliphaz has to say about integrity and what he has to say about God. So let's go back very quickly. Job chapter 5. This is Job, as Eliphaz is saying to Job, God is going to correct you. That's what he's going to say. Beginning in verse 5, chapter 5, verse 1. Call out now. Is there anyone who will answer you? And to which of the holy ones will you turn? For wrath kills a foolish man, and envy slaps a simple one. I have seen the foolish taking root, but suddenly I cursed his dwelling place. His sons are far from safety. They are crushed in the gate. There is no deliverer, because the hungry eat up his harvest, taking it even from the thorns, and a snare snatches their substance. For affliction does not come from the dust, nor does the trouble of springs from the ground. Yet man is born to trouble as the sparks fly upward. But as for me, I would seek God, and to God I will commit my cause. He's saying all of these things that are happening in your life, you can point to one reason and one reason alone, and it's God. You ever sat around a campfire? And if you're a boy in particular, have you ever taken a stick and poked at that fire? Boys can't stay out of campfires. I don't know why. It's like candle flies to a light. They're just drawn to it. They've got to throw something in it. They've got to poke it. Whatever. And you'll see those sparks when they shoot up and they're lifting up into the sky. Job says, the answer to your problem, Eliphaz says to Job, the answer to your problem is as simple as that. It's as obvious as that. Sparks fly upward. God, notice where he said, is anyone, verse 2, who will answer you, and to which of the holy ones will you turn? Can you turn to the Father, the Son, or the Holy Spirit and honestly say to them, as you've said in chapter 4, that you've done no wrong and you don't understand why you're being punished? Eliphaz, again, questioning his integrity. Verse 9, who does great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number? He gives rain. Now this is what God does. Here's what God does. He gives rain on the earth. Lord, I would say right now it's a big good time to bless us with a little rain, wouldn't you? We're dry. We need rain. We know where that blessing comes from. And I tell you something else. Just like my daddy always said, he used to have all kind of these old expressions about when it was raining and it got dry, and he'd talk about how dry it was. He said, man, I saw a rabbit cross the road the other day with a water bottle. That's how dry it is. Now, that's dry. If you see a rabbit cross the road with a water bottle, you know it's dry. But Daddy's favorite expression was, it'll always rain at the end of a dry spell. It will. It always, you know why? Because God's in charge. That's the point that Eliphaz is making. God's in charge. How are you going to argue with that? I'm not going to argue with that. Those are good points. He gives rain on the earth. He sends water on the field. He sets on high those who are lowly, and those who mourn are lifted to safety. He frustrates the devices of the crafty so that their hands cannot carry out their plans. He catches the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the cunning come quickly upon them. And they meet with darkness in the daytime, and they grope at noontime as in the night. But he saves the needy from the sword, from the mouth of the mighty, and from their hand. So the poor have hope, and injustice shuts their mouth. Now here's his argument. God really blesses those that are good. Unfortunate. If you're someone who has sinned, though, he's going to bring punishment on you. Then he starts in verse 17. I put this as man's response. I don't know that it's man's response any more than it is a continuation of the fact that that Eliphaz is still using this argument about God. But when you get down to verse 27, you'll see why I put it as the response. Behold, happy is the man whom God corrects. He's changing his argument just a little bit. He's saying, look here what God does. Look at how mighty God is, how wonderful God is. He sends the rain. He does all this. The poor, He lifts up. Those that mourn, He lifts up. He helps the poor against those that are mighty and are holding them down. All these types of things. This is what God does. And now he basically says, so Jake, you're complaining because a little bit of adversity is coming to your life? Look at it. Behold, happy is the man whom God corrects. I never was happy when daddy or mother grabbed a peach limb and wore my legs out. Were you? Not at that time. 60 years removed from that, I think, that was a pretty good plan. I probably needed that. Probably needed more. It's helped make me who I am today. The correction. And so what Eliphaz is saying is God's punishment. You don't need to look at it as punishment. You need to look at it as the fact that it's a form of correction, that God's trying to straighten you out, Job. Therefore, do not despise the chastening of the Almighty. If you look at it that way, you won't come away with this attitude about, I'm just mad at God. God is not good. God is mean. No. If you look at it from the point of a chastening or a correction, something that's making me a better individual, I'm not going to turn away from God in wrath. For He bruises, but He binds up. He wounds, but His hands make whole. He shall deliver you in 6 troubles. Yes, in 7, no evil shall touch you. In famine, you shall redeem you from the death, and in war from the power of the sword. You shall be hidden from the scourge of the tongue, and you shall not be afraid of the destruction when it comes. You shall laugh at destruction and famine. Instead of Job taking the attitude, and Job did not take this attitude, by the way, that when these calamities happened in his life, he raised a fist toward heaven and blamed God. And Job never did do that. But Eliphaz's argument is, well, if you understood more about God, then you would never respond this way. You shall not be afraid of the beast of the earth, for you shall have a covenant with the stones of the field, and the beast of the field shall be at peace with you. You shall know that your tent is in peace. You shall visit your dwellings and find nothing amiss. You shall also know that your descendants shall be many, and your offsprings like the grass of the earth. You shall come to the grave at a full age, as a sheaf of grain ripened in its season. Now I love, you talking about a good lawyer. Listen to this conclusion, this final statement that he makes. Behold, this is what we've searched out. It is true. Hear it and know it for yourself, Job. Now he's just as much as challenging Job to say, all right, you've heard my argument in relationship to God. Now you know it's true. Why don't you just admit it? As his wife is finally going to say, why don't you just curse God and die? Why don't you admit it? Go ahead and say that you've done something wrong and you're deserving of this punishment. Job is like, I don't understand a word you're saying because I've not done this. And in chapter 6, he starts his answer. Here's Job's answer to Eliphaz. Then Job answered and said, Oh, that my grief were fully weighed and my calamity laid with it on the scales. Verses 1 through 13, he's going to talk about the calamities that he's faced. For then it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words have been rash. For the arrows of the Almighty are within me. My spirit drinks in their poison. The terror of God are arrayed against me. Does the wild donkey bray when it has grass? Or does the ox low over its fodder? Can flavorless food be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the white of an egg? You're hearing all these scientific facts that's thrown out, by the way? You didn't have to eat an egg white to realize there's no taste in it. Why? Because the Bible's already told you it. And it's true. And how much flavor does salt add to something? I know all you folks that can't have salt are like, I wish he'd hush. But so far, the doctor hadn't told me I can't have salt, and I can still have it, and you know what? It's good. It makes that food taste good, doesn't it? Job stating facts. My soul refuses to touch them. They are as loathsome food to me. Oh, that I might have my request, that God would grant me the thing that I long for, that it would please God to crush me. Now, again, Job does not understand why these things are happening. If you'll go back and if you'll remember in chapter 3, in his despair, he said, I wished I'd never been born. I wish this day had never occurred. I wish that had never announced I was 21 inches long and weighed 8 pounds and 12 ounces. I wish that had never occurred because of the situation that I'm in right now. But not one time does he say, but it's God's fault. Not one time does he say that. All he's saying is, I don't understand what's going on. I need some help. Oh, that my request. Verse 8, oh, that God would grant me the things that I long for. Verse 9, that it would please God to crush me, that he would lose his hand and cut me off. Then I would still have comfort. That's a pretty good verse. Listen to it. Circle it. Understand death. Death has two sides. There's the one who dies and dies as a faithful Christian and is in the loving arms of a loving God and finds comfort. And then there's the rest of us who remain. And we long for, and we ache for, and we don't understand. How many times have you heard an individual say, I don't understand why God has, he's left me, he's took my mate, he took my child, he's done this, that person's gone, I'm suffering. Listen to it. It's verse 10. Then I would still have comfort. Though in anguish I would exult. He will not spare, for I have not concealed the words of the Holy One. What strength do I have that I should have hope? And what is my end that I should prolong my life? Is my strength the strength of stones, or is my flesh bronze? Is my help not within me, and is success driven from me? Now don't tell me these questions hadn't been asked by some of us. Job dealt with, wrestled with the same questions of life that you and I do. Why not just take my life? Well, it's from passages like this you'll often hear a preacher say, you got something else to do. You've got something else you need to do. There is a work in God's kingdom that we can all do. There's lives that we can touch. There's differences that can be made. Beginning in verse 14 and going down through verse 23. here he's going to touch on something that I've touched on before. You've made this argument, is what Job is saying. But where was the brotherly kindness in there? You know, I can look at Gary and say, Gary, you're a redheaded stepchild, you know, and I don't like you. And I could just really chew him out. And I maybe everything I say about him is exactly right. But I could still be wrong, couldn't I? In the way that I say it. Look at Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, but speaking the truth in love. Now, if I belliger someone, if I put them down, if I'm just pleased to stomp a mud hole in them, I don't know that God's pleased with me. Here he says, beginning in verse 14, to him who is afflicted, kindness should be shown by his friends. Oh, Eliphaz, take that. You know, that's pretty straightforward. You know, I'm the one that's hurting. And instead of showing me a little bit of human kindness, you have just poured it on me. And now you're telling me that it's my fault. Where's the kindness? Even though he forsakes the fear of the Almighty. I read that this week, and that just, you know, some of the people who are hurting the most in this world today are members who have forsaken the body of Christ. And they may be the ones who need our kindness and understanding and love and compassion more than anybody else in this world. Rather than taking a stick and I'm going to force you, I'm going to poke, I'm going to shove the truth down your throat. You're going to have to take it. No, I don't have to take it. Now, do not misunderstand me. And I don't think this is what Job is saying. He's not saying compromise. He just says there's a way to present the truth. Plain, simple, loving, compassionate. Teach the truth as if that person's life depends upon it and as your life depends upon it as well. Because in truth they do. My life and their life. So, even though he forsakes the fear of the Almighty, my brothers have dealt deceitfully like a brook, like the streams of the brook that pass away, which are dark because of the ice, and into which the snow vanishes. When it is warm, they cease to flow. When it is hot, they vanish from their place. The paths of their way turn aside. They go nowhere and perish. The caravans of Tema look. The travelers of Sheba hope for them. There is disappointment because they were confident. They come there and are confused. For now you are nothing. You see the terror and are afraid. Did I ever say, and here, oh, this is a wonderful statement that Job's making to Eliphaz. Here's the statement of, did I ever bribe you? Did I ever try to convince you that you need to quit teaching what you think's the truth? Did I ever say, bring something to me? Or offer a bribe for me from your wealth? Or deliver me from the enemy's hand? Or redeem me from the hand of the oppressor? Have I ever asked you to do those things for me? Well, I'll admit I am the world's worst on doing acts of kindness. Man, some of you are so marvelous that I'm just amazed. You know, I can visit in a home and somebody will tell me, I got a card from Sister So-and-so. You know, I get a card from her all the time. Just kindest words. Or I was over at so-and-so, and did you know he gave me such and such? Just that, it's something that my daddy or my husband or my son or whatever had given him, and they're gone, and they said that they thought I might like this. They gave me that object. Man, I cherish that object so much. It means so much to me. Acts of kindness. I don't know, it's been 3 weeks ago, Nathaniel? Hey, 1 Peter chapter 1, or 2 Peter chapter 1, beginning of verse 5. Add to your faith all of the things that are there. Brotherly kindness. That's one of them. I've learned something from this chapter, young folks. I need to be kinder to people. I need to take in consideration the things that they're going through. You've always heard that expression, walk in somebody's shoes before you start throwing stones or casting doubt or reflections upon that individual. You need to know where they're coming from. It's too easy to sit back and to say, he needs to be like me. Just look at me. No, I need to understand where they're coming from so that I can help them. Then beginning in verse 24 and going through 30, Job sums it all up by saying basically, now you show me where I'm wrong. Teach me. That's what he's saying. You're throwing these arguments out, but you're not making me believe these arguments. You're questioning my integrity. I've not done anything to deserve this. You're saying God is powerful, but does the Bible not also say God is good? I know it does, and you do too. Does it not also say God is love? I know it does. And you do too. Does it say God is merciful? Does it say God is impartial? Well, if it says God is impartial and God takes my mate from me but doesn't take your mate from me, how would that be impartial? So to blame God for the circumstances in our life is wrong. Job is reasoning through every bit of these things. And he can see the conclusion you're drawing. I may not know the answer, Job's saying. And that's exactly what he's saying. I don't understand. I may not know the answer, but I know your answer is wrong. The conclusion is wrong. It's just wrong. Teach me, and I'll hold my tongue. Cause me to understand. There it is. Cause me to understand wherein I have erred. How forceful are right words. You notice he didn't say how forceful are words. He said right. R-I-G-H-T. Right words, correct words. Words that are appropriate. Words that are suitable for the occasion. Right words are forcible. And what does your arguing prove? Now, you know what a lot of times arguments prove? Is that some folks would argue with a fenced post. That's all it proves. When I was at Memphis School of Preaching, we had a couple of guys in class with us that I guarantee you they'd rather argue as eat when they're hungry. And I would go home and read the material that I'm supposed to read for the next day. And these guys would come into class and they've read that material and they've read every debate that's ever been written on that verse, and all they want to do is argue. Well, all I wanted to know is the truth. What do you want to know? I think if you know the truth, it's not going to be much of an argument. You'll answer all of the false statements. Do you intend to rebuke my words and the speeches of a desperate one, which are as the wind? Yes, you overwhelm the fatherless, and you undermine your friend. Now, therefore, be pleased to look at me, for I would never lie to your face. Yield now, let there be no injustice. Yes, concede, my righteousness still stands. He's pretty adamant about that, isn't he? You've questioned my integrity? Give me an example. You know, show me where I've been out violating the laws of God. That's all he's saying. Is there injustice in my tongue? Cannot my taste discern the unsavory? Don't I know the difference between right and wrong? That's what he's asking. Now, do you know the difference between right and wrong? How do you settle these issues? And how many times have you heard a gospel preacher stand up here before and point to the Bible and talk about the authority of the Bible? You get in a Bible discussion about baptism. What's going to settle that issue? The Bible. You get in a discussion about morals. What's going to settle that? The Bible. The home, marriage, work, modesty, language, anything that you want to talk about, here's what settles the issue. It's not my preference or your preference. It's what God has to say on the matter that counts. What about you this evening? If you're here and never been obedient to the gospel of Jesus Christ, you can, through your faith, repentance, confession, and baptism, become a child of God this evening. If you've done these things, but yet you've fallen short of the glory of God, why not come back to your first love? We're going to sing this invitation song, and as we stand and sing, we invite you to come.